Hello everyone, this is Kumatheta. This is a build where we use Lightning Rod as our main skill for everything, including pinnacle bosses, mapping, and even for Simulacrum. I'm using Titan for this build. This build has good defense. With high energy shield and decent evasion, we can run into mobs during mapping without thinking at all. It is also possible to run a full ES build as well. It is also quite unlikely this build would get nerfed, as there are no shenanigans used and pretty much off meta. No trampling boots, no herald, no cast on shock with ball lightning. And the leveling of this build is very smooth. We can follow a similar pathing on the passive tree from low level to end game with only some minor adjustments. To begin with, this build is inspired by Rudu's Gas Arrow Deadeye build. The key takeaway for me is the combo of Death's Harp with North Paw. Most people like me might be aware of the extra arrows provided by Death's Harp only, but the plus critical damage bonus is actually very strong. If you are not familiar with POE math, plus and increase are different. Simply say they are multiplicative, and basically there are not many sources of plus critical damage bonus out there. At least I don't have that in this build. Therefore, this doesn't suffer from any diminishing return from stacking and gives a straight increase in critical damage. On top of that, North Paw gives us a better base critical hit chance, up to 9.7% when cursed, providing us with more value out of the great critical damage bonus from Death's Harp. However, the drawback is obvious too. By using North Paw, we are giving up on Hand of Wisdom and Action, which means we are missing out on a ton of plus damage. We would try to get it from Rings and Quiver, but still we could never get to the same level of single hit damage. This leads to our skill choice. We want a skill that can hit the same target multiple times. The obvious choice could be Gas Arrow, where the explosion has very high damage scaling and could overlap. At least that is the case for large enemies like bosses. However, we have to face a dilemma, whether to go for Radiant Grief for auto-ignite and live with less defense, or use a helmet with better defense but have to use Flame Wall for igniting enemies. Turns out, I don't really enjoy either option, and therefore we have this build here, using Lightning Rod as our main skill. On paper, Gas Arrow's explosion is 5 times the damage of Lightning Rod. To compensate for that, we really need to utilize the overlapping of attack areas to get close to the same damage output. In this build, we are using Titan to get access to increase in attack area passives near the starting location of Warrior. Before moving on, let me sidetrack a little bit. There is something I do not fully understand. Look at this, I was doing a test here. Gas Arrow has 3 parts of damages: the arrow itself, Poison Cloud, and the explosion. The damage shown here is the arrow. So even without explosion, shouldn't a single arrow have almost the same amount of damage as all 6 lightning rods? Let's see how it goes. Actually, you can see that I am barely killing anything using Gas Arrow, not until the explosion happens. And here the explosion occurs and everything dies, of course. Here I switch back to using Lightning Rod, with no supporting gems as you have seen before. Even so, I can clear the minions pretty easily. That's what I am unsure about. Maybe Lightning Rod has even more damage than I expected. Leave me comments down below if you have any theories. Let's get back to the build, starting with how we play. For mapping, we just need to spam Lightning Rods. Cast Orb of Storms only when you want some extra damage. For bosses, put down Orb of Storms and spam Lightning Rods like a maniac. Orb of Storms has to be under our feet when you attack with Lightning Rods. Casting Lightning Rods trigger Orb of Storms to shoot out bolts that trigger our Lightning Rods, dishing out a ton of damage. It's basically the same for pinnacle bosses, but we may swap some gems to make it faster. Pretty simple, I would say. Beware though, when we spam Lightning Rods standing on Orb of Storms for an extended period of time, it uses a ton of our graphics card power. This is most obvious when we are doing Simulacrum. You may want to turn down the graphics settings to keep your FPS high. Let's talk about gear. I am lucky and get most of my gear pretty cheap. Some because of people's misprice, and some I get lucky with Vol Orb and make them even better. First, Death's Harp. As we said, we want high plus critical damage bonus, preferably 60% or more. Normally we get 4 extra arrows from Death's Harp, 1 from Implicit, 3 from Suffix, but a cursed one can give us 1 more and become 5 extra arrows. There are 2 possible ways to get the 5th extra arrow, either as a reroll on the suffix from 3 extra arrows to 4, or as an explicit modifier. Remember to look for both if you want to buy one. I bought this one with 3 divine. It was way more expensive to buy one with 4 extra arrows suffix and with shitty critical damage bonus. In the North Paw we want high base crit chance. I got this by using Vol Orb myself. Next, we have Quiver. We need all the flat damage we can get here, followed by critical chance. We would prefer Visceral Quiver for its implicit critical hit chance. The extra skill level like this one here is good of course, but that is usually very expensive. This should be of lower priority. Getting some attributes is good too. For rings, it is similar. We want high flat damage, followed by resistance and attributes. We need attributes to use a higher level Orb of Storms and Spirit Gems. For Amulet, it is rather flexible. I choose to add more defense with Energy Shield, some attributes, and critical hit chance. For the remaining gears, I would suggest either going high ES plus some evasion, or full ES. And try to get a little bit of Spirit, but it is not a must. I will explain more in the skill session. For passives, you can follow the link in the description. I would go over only some important points here. We are going all around the outer loop, and we take all the critical, attack areas, and ES nodes along the way. For Ascendancy, we get Hulking Form and the stun-related passives. It is surprising to me how many good nodes for this build that are close to this path. For early games, I just take all these attack damage nodes, as I don't need to care much about defense in Standard League and only respec out of it at around level 80. Also, I use the stun ascendancy nodes before getting my 3rd and 4th ascendancy points at high level, and they are very effective. For jewels, I have Megalomaniac, which allocates Master Fletching. Heavy Contact is just a bonus. Megalomaniac with Master Fletching is cheap. I guess it is because it is so rare for a build like this that uses bow skills but not pathing near it. However, if this build reaches level 95, we would have enough points to allocate Master Fletching by giving up Careful Assassin, and we have to replace this Megalomaniac by that time. For other jewels, I go for all emeralds for damages. For skill gems, we have Lightning Rod of course. There are many good options of support gems. For mapping, I use Magnified Effect, Primal Armament, Martial Tempo. The remaining ones are debatable and also depend on your gear. First option would be Ambush, giving our high crit chance. However, as we are hitting 5 or 6 rods at the same time, I am not sure if all 5 or 6 hits get the bonus crit chance or just one. So tell us in the comment if you know the answer. Another one I am using is Overpower. Higher stun is good for both offensive and defensive, especially I have Megalomaniac, which allocates heavy contact. Other possible support gems include Close Combat, Long Shot, and Elemental Focus. All have their own advantages. However, don't use Concentrated Effect unless fighting against pinnacle bosses. The reduction in attack area really hurts this build. You can try. I have tried it myself, and it feels worse than without it for me. For pinnacle bosses, I would use Martial Tempo, Primal Armament, Concentrated Effect, Close Combat, with the last one as Overpower or Elemental Focus. For Orb of Storms, its only purpose is to trigger lightning rods, so we use Chain. With Overabundance, Unleash and Arcane Tempo to help us put 2 orbs down as fast as possible. Last but not least, we have Fond of Rage as our rage generator. For spirit gems, the most important one is Grim Feast together with Cannibalism. Grim Feast is a no-brainer, while Cannibalism gives us the sustain as we use life to cast, which is especially important for Simulacrum. Wind Dancer is great if you have evasion. Others are based on personal preferences. I'm using Overwhelming Presence, Berserk, and War Banner. You can use Blink, Heralds, Skeletons, all have their own usages. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the video, like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel and leave comments down below. Lastly, here is how this build works in Simulacrum and versus Xesht. See you guys next time.
Believe me, you will fall Exile. Quickly! Keep your precious sanity, my agent of chaos.
A rarity, and all mine. I've no more room.
We that dreamed, we in nightmare, we that are one. She of thought and motion, thrive, we that fail.
I've no more room.